Hey guys, it's Penguin here, and welcome back to another gold making video. In today's video, I'm going to be covering 5 to 7 different tips that I think all gold makers should know. Now, of course, depending on your experience, you may know some of these already, but if you can walk away from this video with learning at least one new thing, then I will be very happy. A lot of these come from questions that I get in our Discord a lot, in the comments section, as well as on Twitch whenever I'm streaming, so hopefully these will be helpful to you. But without further ado, let's get into it. And so up first, I have a collection of items that you should be using, whether you're a crafter, gatherer, or even transmog farmer. And the items you use are a little bit different depending on your professions, but let's highlight all of the crafters first. And so for all the crafters out there, we have 2 different items. The first one is this file of quick hands, and it's basically a crafting speed buff. As you can see right here, if we look at the quality 3, it will increase the speed of my crafts by 30%. This is especially huge in Dragonflight, as a lot of crafts in the higher end require multiple seconds to craft. And they are also so cheap. This only costs 175 gold, and it will last you 30 minutes. So a 30% boost for 30 minutes is pretty good. Of course, if you don't want to justify paying this much or it gets reset, you have the quality 1, which will increase it by 18%, and the quality 2, which will increase by 24%. Now, once you have your speedy crafting speed, I recommend picking up one of these Enchants. What this actually does is increase your inspiration. Now, the question is, because it actually doesn't say on the tooltip, you gain plus 20 inspiration. If you guys don't know, plus 10 is about 1%, so plus 20 is about 2% inspiration. So normally if you have 20, you'll go up to 22, etc. And so the difference in quality here is actually time. So right here, the quality 1 will still give you plus 20, but it will only last for 10 minutes. The quality 2, same thing, but for 20, and lastly, quality 3 for 30. So unless you plan on going AFK for 30 full minutes, I actually don't recommend buying the highest quality. I generally buy just the quality 2, since it's half the cost and lasts 20 minutes, and if I decide to buy 2 of these, it's the same cost as this one, and it will last me 40. So this is normally my go-to situation, and let's move on to the gatherers. And so if you are a gatherer, you have a few options. The first one, the easiest option you have, are these razor stones. What this does is increase your finesse by 15 for 2 hours. So that's about 1.5% of your finesse. This applies to mining, herbalism, and skinning. Now, these work just like the potions, so, a quality 1 will give you plus 15, quality 2 will give you plus 20, and lastly, a quality 3 will give you plus 25. You can justify the price to whatever you'd like, but I highly recommend picking these up. Now, if you are a gatherer, you can also pair those razor stones with these files, but these do cost a little bit more. The annoying part of these is that they actually are BOP, so unless you have alchemy yourself, you'll have to order these through the crafting order system, which generally isn't that bad. However, it does require artisan's metal. So not everybody will want to use these files, but these will increase either your finesse, your perception, or deafness if you want to buy them. Of course, it ultimately depends on the quality that you create, but you will get 10 potions for 10 metal, so you're basically spending 1 artisan's metal per potion. Of course, depends on your metal supply, but you can order these if you want some better gathering experience. Then lastly, for any sort of dungeon farmer, TMOG runner, anybody who is dealing with actual speed, this is a file you're going to want to pick up. Depending on the quality, it will increase your speed by a significant amount. Right here, the quality 1 is about 629, 686, and then lastly, 743. And as you can see, they are relatively very cheap. Now, the biggest downside is that they do require level 61, so whatever character is using this has to be, in Dragonflight or at a level of Dragonflight standard. So if you have a level 50 transmog farmer, you can't really utilize this, but it's something to keep in mind as well. And alright, moving on, the second tip that I have is dealing with profession equipment, specifically quality. And so I get a lot of questions about, does profession equipment quality matter? And my answer is kinda. What I mean by this is the only thing that quality changes is the secondary stats of your equipment. For example, if we take a look at this, rank 5 basic fabric cutters, as you can see, I'm getting plus 79 speed and plus 6 skill. I've pulled up the other fabric cutters on the auction house, and right here, if we look at a lower quality, as you can see, the only thing that changes is that plus 62. So instead of gaining, a random stat of plus 79, we're getting only 62, but we're still getting that plus 6 skill. And so that kind of answers the question of, does quality matter? If you're somebody who is just looking for a basic skill increase, like myself most of the time, quality really doesn't matter that much. A quality 1 is still going to grant you plus 6 compared to a quality 5 needle set. However, of course, the higher the quality, the better the bonus stats, which is of course amazing in the long run. But keep in mind, you can recraft these items, so, I think it's just most important to have this item crafted, and then you can upgrade it later. Going on with that same topic of profession tools and equipment, there is actually enchants for your profession tools. Now, if you are a gatherer, you have access to 3 different ones. You can increase your deftness, your finesse, or your perception. And if you are a crafter, you only have 2 options, resourcefulness as well as inspiration. So if you are somebody who is looking for either of those 2, you can either pay very, very little, or you can pay a premium depending on your quality, but this is something I highly recommend. And this is where I need to throw in a very, very important disclaimer for any crafters or gatherers out there. Sadly, in Dragonflight, enchants scale by character level, meaning the same enchant on a level 62 is not going to be as effective as that same exact enchant on a level 70. And so what that means for us is that if you have a crafter that is not level 70, you actually don't gain as much skill from these as a level 70. For example, right here, I have a tier 2 inspiration, enchant on this item, and I'm gaining plus 32 inspiration. However, I will throw up a picture of my level 64 scribe and leatherworker who has the same exact enchant, but I'm only gaining plus 15 because of that character scaling. So that is a huge downside, but eventually you can level up your tunes, and at the end of the day, any sort of perk helps, but that's something to keep in mind. Up next, I want to talk about the weekly crafting order quest. As you guys may or may not know, most crafting professions have a weekly quest that you have to complete anywhere between 2 to 3 crafting orders. Generally, on most servers, this is kind of difficult to do, as there's not many public orders going around. However, thankfully, you can actually use private orders from your alts to complete this. So I'll throw some footage on screen, but what I like to do on my main character, I like to just send out a bunch of private work orders to all of my alts, then my alts just fulfill them, and that completes their weekly. In terms of the items that I actually use, I generally use the BOE profession equipment. So generally they're very cheap, and after they're created, you can either disenchant them or sell them on the auction house for some extra gold. If you have a tailorer, you can actually request wilder cloth bags, which are super, super cheap, and you have some other sources like that as well. But definitely take advantage of your alts. Next up, I want to talk about specializations and address probably one of the most common questions I get about a specific tree. So in every single profession, depending on which one, it might be named something differently, but there's some sort of generic tree. You can generally spot this because it will have, some sort of mastery, generic trait, and there will be some sort of inspiration trait as well as resourcefulness coming off of it. For example, tailoring is super easy because there's literally called tailoring mastery, but if we look over at enchanting, it's actually under the rods, runes, and ruses. Right here, it's not called mastery at all, but you can spot it because it has that inspiration and the resourcefulness one right here. And so what I want to actually highlight about this is that this right here affects everything. If you read this tooltip, it says increasing your skill at crafting enchantments and enchanting goods, and a lot of people say, okay, what in the world is enchanting goods? If we look over at the tailoring one, it just says, improve the art of tailoring, and a lot of people are like, what the heck does that mean? And this is just increasing your skill of everything. So if you are short on, a specific item, you just need some bonus skill, throwing points into this section is super powerful. Also, in addition to that, the inspiration tree itself is insanely powerful as well. We're going to talk about it in just 1 second, but keep an eye out for this generic tree. So if you see any sort of thing that says, hey, general goods, like jewel crafting goods, alchemy goods, anything like that, it is likely the generic, just increasing skill trait. And so going back to the inspiration node, I want to talk about how important this trait is. Now, of course, it's going to take you about 30 points on every single profession to max this out. Engineering is special, so engineers out there, don't really listen to this, but to everybody else, you will want to max this out. The reasoning is once you max this out, you will gain 50% skill whenever you proc an inspiration. Right here, immediately upon learning, you're going to gain 5%, then 10, bringing that to 15, another 10, 25, and lastly, an additional 25 to make that 50%. And you're probably like, all right, Penguin, what does this mean? And let's show you a real life example. If we highlight an item like this, you will notice the recipe difficulty is 450. This means you have to have your skill over 450 to guarantee a quality 3. And if you look, in order to guarantee a quality 2, it requires 225. 225 is 50% of that 450. So in order to guarantee a tier 2, you have to basically have 50% of the required skill. And so what that means is if you have this maxed out, as long as you can craft a quality 2, you will always proc a quality 3. So right here, for example, I will proc 200 bonus skill if I get an inspiration proc. 200% is 50% of 400, so as long as my skill is 200, I'm good to go. Of course, I have way more, skill than necessary here, but that just means I can guarantee a quality 3 way easier. And you're like, okay, what does this actually mean? And let's do some math. As you guys know, quality 3s is what's making the most profit right now. So if we go onto the auction house and look up devotion, and we find the most expensive one, let's go with these devotion of speed. Right here, if we look at the item, as you can see, I have a 20% inspiration rate. That means I have a 20% chance of proccing inspiration. Now, let's just use some basic math. Let's say we craft 100 of these. Our expected rate should be 20 procs, right? 100 crafts, 20%. We should end up with 20 quality 3s and 80 quality 2s. So, with that being said, our crafting cost is 181 gold. We take that and we times it by 100. That means we will spend 18,000 gold on crafts. Now, let's say we proc and we meet it, we don't get anything extra, we don't get anything less. Let's say we get exactly 20 enchants. The quality 3s are going for 1900, so that times 20 is 38,000 gold. So as long as we can proc 20 times, keep in mind if we use our incense and our quick hands, incense will give us plus 2%, which increases that even more. That is basically 20,000 gold profit without even taking into consideration resourcefulness, multi-craft, anything like that. And so that is really the big benefit of inspiration. As long as you can guarantee a quality 2 craft, you can proc a 3, and 3 is where that money is. Feel free to do the same sort of equation with anything, but just keep in mind that the more you craft in bulk, the better your odds will be. Of course, if you craft, only 5 enchants, 20% is technically 1 enchant, but you could get very unlucky and proc none. So I highly recommend crafting in bulk as long as you can afford it. And before this video ends, I just want to leave it off with 2 more add-on recommendations, and the first one is Buy Them All. This is a very popular one that I've been using basically forever, and it just allows you to buy in bulk. So for example, if I wanted a ton of vellums, I can shift-click, and I get this little menu. I can type in, the exact amount that I need, or I can quickly just hit stack, and as you can see, it will stack, or I could hit max. This will either fill my inventory or, of course, purchase as much as I can afford. The last add-on that I recommend is actually just a normal casting bar add-on. It is called Quartz. However, the reason why I love it for gold making is because it shows you your cast timer. So if I were to craft all of these, it shows me it's going to take exactly 1 minute and 12 seconds. So this is perfect, if you're crafting in bulk. You don't really have to guess, okay, I'll come back in 20 minutes. It will tell you exactly how long it takes. You can set a timer on your phone, walk away, go watch a TV episode or something, and come back at the exact correct time. But everybody, that is all of the tips that I have for today's video. I really do appreciate you guys watching. I hope I succeeded and you guys learned at least one new thing, but at the end of the day, there are just so many different things that I can talk about. So feel free to leave any sort of extra tips or tricks that you have for other people in the comments down below, and let me know what you learned. But everybody, as always, thank you so much for watching the videos. I hope everybody has a good Christmas if you celebrate, and have a good day, everybody.